Okay, so ready to dive into something kind of heavy.
Always up for a challenge. What do we got?
Well, today's deep dive is all about the meaning of life. No biggie, right?
The age-old question. Let's hear it. And what's our source got to say about it?
Well, it takes a, shall we say, unique approach.
Unique, good or unique? I might need to unpack this a bit.
Oh, definitely some unpacking required. So buckle up because the main argument here is that life at its core boils down to dot orgasm.
Whoa. Okay, didn't see that coming. And it's saying that's the meaning of life. Like, that's it.
Well, it's not quite that simple. It goes on to connect this idea to all sorts of other human desires, like the drive for power, the hunger for fame, even the pursuit of wealth. It's suggesting these are all just tools to reach that ultimate dot release.
I see. So it's trying to draw a line between these very primal urges and these grand ambitions we humans have.
Exactly. So how does it explain that connection? What's the link?
It all comes down to the concept of love and its role in, well, creation, both literally and metaphorically, apparently. The document talks about this circle of love that kind of fuels existence.
This circle of love. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Right. So it basically argues that everything you do, everything we strive for, ties back into this cycle of creation, of union and release, from the spark of life to, believe it or not, death.
Wow, even death. That's a pretty bold claim.
Right. It argues that even death is, in a way, a form of release, a return to a state of unity.
So it's not just about the physical act itself, but more about this deeper idea of union as a kind of ultimate expression of love. Is that what you're
Yeah,
getting at?
precisely. The document even uses the example of all things a seed. It's released in an act of love, it's nurtured in a loving environment, and its whole life cycle feeds back into this circle of creation and union. And it claims that this drive for completion, as it calls it, underpins absolutely everything we do.
It's fascinating how this idea, while definitely presented in a very direct way here, seems to echo certain philosophical concepts I've come across before, like the tantric view of energy flow, for example, or even Freud's drive theory.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right. There's definitely a common thread there, this idea of a fundamental energy or drive that seeks release and fulfillment.
Hmm.
And yeah, even though the source primarily focuses on the, well, physical manifestation of this drive,
Right.
it does kind of leave room for interpretation, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we think about the act of creation more broadly, beyond just the physical,
Right.
like artistic expression, scientific discovery, even spiritual enlightenment for some,
Yeah.
don't those all involve a similar kind of process, like striving towards something, reaching a peak, a point of culmination, and then experiencing a kind of release?
Absolutely. And maybe, just maybe, that feeling of flow that people talk about when they're completely immersed in something they love, when they're just so absorbed in the process of creation or discovery, maybe that in itself is a form of union, a merging of the self with the act of creation.
That's a really interesting thought.
I mean, this source definitely makes you think outside the box, right? It
Mm.
pushes us to look beyond the conventional interpretations of things and consider the deeper, maybe even universal drives that motivate us, why we do, what we desire.
Definitely a lot to chew on here. Is there some kind of fundamental energy or drive pushing us all forward? What role do union and release in all their forms play in our pursuits? And maybe the most intriguing question of all, if we could really grasp this drive, could it help us understand our own motivations and desires on a much deeper level?
Big questions.
Big questions indeed. Something to think about, listeners.